Hello, hello, and welcome to all of you beautiful souls. Thank you for tuning in today to the Heart of the Soul podcast on Birthing Nova on YouTube. My name is Amana, and I am just so delighted that you're here. I am grateful for you. Yes, you, my listener, my soul sister, my love. Truly, I feel so honored with each download that I see happen. Today, I would like to invite you to sync to the cycles of the moon with me with new episodes on full and new moons. This is a space where we explore what it means to be wild women, walking upon this earth, connecting about that which unites us all. Together, we locate our unique inner compasses and practice communicating from this center. We unearth that which is often unseen and unspoken through the ancient ritual of storytelling. It is my hope that soaking in these stories will bring you closer to your own innate knowing and center you into a more embodied, alive version of your beautiful, unique self. Today is Sunday, November 5th, 2023. The moon is currently waning, moving towards a new moon on the 13th, which is when my next regular episode will be airing. I'm hoping to publish this little solo episode as a bonus prior to that, but we'll see what unfolds in the days to come. I am currently in Mississippi in our little tiny home. And my husband has taken our two littles to the beach today, which is giving me this moment, these hours to pause and take time to record this episode and care for myself and be present and just be in our little home in a way that I haven't gotten to do since I arrived home just, I think 6 or 7 nights ago. Yeah. So right now I'm sensing a little bit in my heart and my soul. I'm feeling part of me aching to be with my family, and then at the same time this like gratitude for this spaciousness and this sacred time right now for me. So today I've written some little notes. If you've been following along with the podcast for a while, you'll notice that I took a 3-month pause this, summer slash fall. I published an episode in early August, but then took off the rest of the month of August, September, October. And that was really actually challenging for me to do. It's so interesting that taking a break could be so hard for me. I know it's not hard for everyone, but yes. So this episode is going to be sort of recapping some of the things that I've been thinking about. What did I do during these 3 months? And some different thoughts and stories that come up from that time I've taken away. So the kids and I traveled from Mississippi, MISSIPPI, yes. From Mississippi by car in our van all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. I should have maybe looked this up. I meant to, how many miles that was, but many, 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 many miles, crossing many states, and took us a couple of weeks, I think. Over a week, I know. I'd have to look back at my calendar for certain, but So we were away for 3 months, and I also decided I wasn't sure exactly how long we were going to be away. I had just been yearning to be with my soul family, with my soul sisters, with my family, to be in the Pacific Northwest, the land of my ancestors, the land that I grew up on. And my husband had been expecting work to be really busy over the summer, and we had talked about us taking a shorter trip. And then he's like, if you're going all that way, he encouraged us to take a longer trip. So I definitely had anxiety about it, like leading up to it. And then we left. And once we were there, it was really wonderful and beautiful. Of course, also challenging in different ways. But I decided to also, along with that, because I was going to be traveling and solo parenting with my 3-year-old and 6-year-old, that I turned off my booking calendar that's normally open for people during, certain hours and times for people to schedule mediumship readings or clarity calls or sistership gatherings. And for the first time, I think as for the last several years, I completely just like took those options away, closed my calendar, and created a little wait list and a sign up sheet that people could email me if they wanted to engage in those ways, but when I was available, like they wanted to do it anyway. So I did that, and that felt really amazing and liberating. And I would love to. So in my notes here, I have this note about Akilah S. Richards, because she did this series on the Fair of the Free Child podcast, an excellent podcast, especially if you're engaging with unschooling or just being a free person yourself, cultivating freedom in your children's lives. It's an incredible podcast. And she did this whole series that was called Pause. And I have listened to it multiple times. I would highly encourage you to go and listen. Being a woman of this time, I am currently 40 years old. I'll be 41 on the 20th of this month. But I grew up in a family that was very task, work, goal-oriented, that being productive made you worthy, that was how you gained worthiness. And so for me to press pause, to stop and not do the podcast and paid work with clients was really big for me, to actively choose that. And it's also like, are people going to stop listening if I take 3 months off? Like all the worries, right? But I love this pause series and and I loved this pause experience of 3 full months. I first thought I was just going to do 2 months. And then I said, no, I'm taking October off too. And it felt so, so good. And I was on my computer barely at all. I had it with me, but rarely used it. I'll say, I guess, a little bit more about that down the line. But so the travel up was hard, but okay. It was also sort of, fun and exciting. And the kids and I got to, stop and go to different parks. And when we stayed in hotels, we swam in the pools and got to see lots of different terrain and stay with some family along the way and some old friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was also really hard with 2 little people, but we made it. Maybe I will share some tips and tricks about traveling with kids another time, but I don't feel like this is the space. I want to record this podcast via my notes, and then turn my computer off and create some I love creating just ceremony. I'm going to turn on some music and dance. I have a little more unpacking to do. I want to just be and maybe read or pull some tarot, do some watercolor, just do what I want to do. So I'm going to try and be somewhat succinct on a lot of these. But so I had a birth that I was going to attend in Georgia, which is, yeah, about 6 hours away from where I am now. And so we were waiting to begin our travels to the Northwest until this baby came earthside, and I had the opportunity to be there with that mama, and then also do a postpartum visit and ceremony with her after, a week or so after baby was earth. And I had my 20-year high school reunion was coming up this last end of July, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it in time, depending on when this baby arrived. But it turned out she arrived, and I was able to make the journey to the Northwest and be there for my high school reunion. Now, I will say it's not something I would probably like. I haven't been to the past ones. There was, I think, a 5-year and a 10-year, and I did not attend those. But I had a dear friend reach out, and also my sister reach out saying, like, are you going to come? Please come. I want you to come. We had a 20-ish high school reunion because of the COVID times. A few of them didn't take place. So it was not just our year, but also the year above our year. And so I just kind of made up my mind, well, if I can get there in time, I will go. But then once I realized I could get there, I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to go. But then I had a hard time finding childcare for my kids. We were going to be staying with my mom, but she happened to have a wedding that day. And anyway, long story short, it turned out that the wedding was earlier in the day. And so she could do after like a time, but not the whole time. And then I was able to have a dear friend, my dear friend, Katie Duke, Katie Joy. She wrote the book Still Breathing. I have an episode with her. It's about her little baby Poppy that died in her womb before she was birthed at full term. And she's about her journey of love, loss, and reinvention, I think is what it says on the book. An excellent book. It's also available on audiobook now, and I have an episode with her, so check that out if you want. But she and her husband were able to play, and their little daughter, Moxie, were able to play with my two little children for those. It was just like 2.5 hours that I needed covered because I needed to be able to catch a ferry to get to the reunion. I didn't want it was only a few hours long, but everything wound up working out so beautifully. My kids were happy to play and be with them. I was able to get out. I was able to get in line for the ferry, and I made it across in time. I love also taking the ferry. So I made it to the high school reunion. That was a hoot all in of itself. Saw some people I wasn't expecting. There were other people that didn't show up that I was kind of hoping to see. But all in all, it was fun and lovely to reconnect with some high school friends. And the next morning, before I took the ferry back over to my mother's house, I got to have a cup of coffee, get a cup of coffee, go to my favorite donut shop. If you're ever in Paulsbo, Sly's Donuts, they're amazing. There's always a line out the door, especially on the weekends. I got a donut and got to walk along the boardwalk and the rocky beach, and it just brought me back to my childhood, getting to be on those beaches. So I grew up on what's called the Kitsap Peninsula. It's a smaller peninsula. Peninsula is like a landmass out in with ocean water around. So, I will say it's ocean water Some people might agree with me. Other people would say it's sound water, which I don't really understand how different that is. It's water that came from the ocean, and it rises and falls with there are tides from the pull of the moon each day. And so it's salt water, and there are sea creatures there and mussels. And I remember when I was younger, saw a little pot of orcas came into the Sound, which is unusual to be in what's called Dyes Inlet, this, a smaller little inlet. I do remember seeing them sometimes when I was on ferry boats, but anyway. So it's this ocean water, which my connection with the ocean has just like increased over the years. Like, I loved it as a child. I remember digging in that mud. We have something called a geoduck, which is a very large shellfish. It's like the shells are like the size, can be the size of my hands. They can live over, I think it was like 140 some years. And it's this large mollusk that buries themselves like 2 to 3 feet under, but then their like mollusk tube can stick out above the water, and they like squirt water, and they're very interesting creatures. Anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but it was really beautiful to be there by myself. And then I also like took my children on the ferry and got to show them the land of where I grew up. We were staying at my mom's house, and I love my mom dearly. She has a beautiful home with white couches and white carpet and lots of fragile, beautiful things all around her house. So being there with my 2 little ones was definitely stressful at times. I don't think we ever spent an entire day at her house. We would always go out of the house and find something to do. I had the incredible joy of one of my dearest friends, Jessie, J-Ma. There's also a podcast episode earlier. I'll try and maybe include those in the show notes, where she shares some of her birth stories. I have attended 2 of her births. I've been there, witnessed her beauty in her birthing her babies. She has 4 little wildlings now, and she lived just like 5-10 minutes away from my mom, or she does live currently that close to my mom. So she and I just got to spend some incredible time together with our wildlings. Her kids run summer break. My kids aren't in colonized school. So there's also this beach just a few minutes from my mom's house. So we would meet at this beautiful, it's called Richmond Beach, with this big long shoreline, and you can see the sunset from there. So we met there. The boys loved digging for crabs and finding little crabs. And there's these huge rose hip plants there. So we would eat some wild rose hips and also pick some of the roses. I actually wound up using the rose petals and some rose buds that I dried for my mother's cake for her birthday while we were staying with her. But yes, Jessie and I, we danced together. We built earth altars down at the beach. We had sleepovers, sharing food and meals together. It was just an incredible time. Went to the library, went to the zoo. It was just so delightful and fun for us and for our children. Our children love each other, and we love each other, and we love each other's children. It was just a really treasured time this summer that I got to have with her, that like I have returned home with such an incredibly full cup from all these beautiful in-person interactions. And that was sort of my whole thing with this summer. I was going to prioritize being in person with people. I intentionally did not sign up for virtual calls or classes. I only attended a few Mother Circle facilitator follow-up calls. It was just like one a month. And it felt good for me to do those, but I did not engage in any other ones, even though there were other ones that I wanted to do. So Jessica Connolly was one of the facilitators, so her and Kimberly Ann Johnson joined forces to offer Mother Circle facilitator training. And then she offered Mother Circle, and I'm probably still going to go back and watch the replays, but they were during this time when I was taking a screen break. And so I did not attend those live classes, even though part of me was drawn to. Anyway, I'm going to have Jessica Connolly. She's going to be on the podcast. I'm actually scheduled to speak with her tomorrow to do a podcast episode, and I'm super excited for that. Oh, and while I'm talking about it, I'll just say here real quick that I am going to be offering a Mother Circle through Kimberly Ann Johnson. I'm going to be offering Mother Circle. It's this 8-week beautiful arc of a course. And that'll be starting in January. More details to come, and there'll be a sign up link. Hopefully, as soon as I finish creating the webpage. Yeah. Side notes. Okay. So then also, one of my dearest friends, Ashleigh Pigeon Fonseca, she and I have been friends for 12 something like that, over a decade. And you'll see there are 2 episodes that she has been on of the podcast. And she was one of those people that the day that we met, we just knew we were destined to like be friends. And we even had like this astrology reading later on that the guy was like, oh yes, you two were cut from the same cloth. And it absolutely feels that way. She was one of my dearest friends. We voice message to each other nearly every day, if not multiple times a day. But we had met, and a few days after we first met, she and her husband, she conceived her first child, her son. And so that means that since then, for our friendship, like I have, visited her with her child, and she's visited me with her son, and she's had 2 more kids since then. But she lives in Canada. So I'm in Washington State, or was in Washington State. She's up in BC. So over this 10 years of friendship, all of our times together have been also with spouses and or children. So we had been wanting to do something, just the 2 of us, a trip, just the 2 of us. And it turned out that this August was the time to do it. So the beginning of August, she had found this festival she really wanted to go to. So I said yes. My mom said yes to the dates, and her grandmas, her mother and mother-in-law said yes to caring for the kids. Her husband was going to be gone. So I got to have, I think it was 4 nights away from my littles with my friend Ashleigh. And that was incredible. Even just driving in the van then by myself felt so different, right, than driving with 2 kids, and getting to have meals together. And we camped in the forest next to a creek. We chose a camping spot that we had to step across these stones to get across the creek to our tent. And it was just a really precious, beautiful time. We participated in some incredible workshops. The festival's called Enliven. And we danced, we played, we sat, we had food, we had our coffee. It was a really beautiful, incredible, special time to be the 2 of us. And I also got to meet another one of her beautiful friends, actually a few of them, but like one that we stayed with the first night before we got to the camping place. And oh my gosh, I just adore her already. I'm so excited. Ashleigh turns 40 this next year, and inspired by my 40th birthday celebration, she is giving herself a 40th birthday celebration. And I am so excited to be there and be with her friends and celebrate her. Yes. Okay. So we got to have this incredible time. The 2 of us, it was the longest time she'd been away from her kids, also, I think, without her husband. And it was so interesting and so different to, camp and not worry about kids and bedtime and cleaning them up and their clothes. And I remember she and I both were like hearing like phantom cries and, having these moments where we like thought we needed to do something. For a moment, we thought we needed to do something with our kids or tend to our children, and then we didn't have to. And it was just, yeah, what a gift. I also got to go with my kids to Tiger Lake. It's the lake that I lived on when I was a baby from like 0 to 3 before we moved across the country for a few years. But lucky for me, our next door neighbors wound up like buying our property and allow me and, have allowed for all these years my dad and us kids to come back to that same place. And like the bulkhead the bulkhead, it's like a concrete, part along the shoreline that my dad built many, many years ago. There's still this big oak tree there that I remember there used to be a tire swing there, but it's like a tree that has been there for so many years, like since I was a baby. And I remember like my grandfather, who's no longer living, pushing us on the swing there. So we got to return. I got to take both of my kids there, and also my husband Owen flew in and met us there. And it was over like the week just before my dad's birthday. And my brother came with his wife and their daughter, and my sister and her partner. And it was just so special for all of us that could be there to be together and be with my dad and my stepmom. And we got to be on this lake and swim in the waters that I learned to swim as a child, that I swam in these waters, and to then swim in those same waters with my children, and to go canoeing. It all just felt so full circle, so precious. Yeah, so wonderful. I mean, we were all in this like tiny little cabin, but we made it work, and it was just, yeah, unforgettable. And then, so this is all in August I'm speaking to right now. And then near the end of August, I had taken my son Odin up to Canada one time, a year old, but he hasn't been back since. And of course, COVID happened and all those like restrictions of travel. But so both my kids already had their passports. So she has 3 kids and I have my 2. So we did plan for me to spend a week up there with her, and her husband was there for part of the time and then not for a few days. But we got to go up there, and it was really neat and fun to watch the kids like integrate and be with, like build that relationship across that week, something that wouldn't happen if we were only there for a couple of days. And, by the end of the week, they were playing around like they were siblings and just really doing a wonderful job playing with one another. And they knew the house and the space, and they didn't want to leave. And we were, crying when we left, and they were crying. And it was just an incredible time. We got to play and have food and go up the gondola and explore and hike. And it was just, divine. Yes. Okay. And then from there, I went to my in-laws north of Spokane, and they have 20 acres. And it was just, so I could feel my whole nervous system shift. And I knew it would be that way. It's always that way when I go out there. Getting to be in spaciousness like that is really one of those big things that allows me to renew myself. It's what we're working towards as a family, to own many acres that we can have this be like our daily life and have animals, and that I can host women's circles and events. And it's what we're moving towards, what we're envisioning for our future, but we're not quite there yet. We don't have our home and land yet, but that is what we're moving towards. So being able to be in his parents' beautiful home and on their land, I took lots of time to sit alone outside, like when the kids were with grandparents. Just sit outside. I took little walks around their property. They have wild yarrow growing, and so I got to harvest yarrow and make tea or infusions with it. I saw some wild St. John's wort, which always makes me happy to like reconnect with these different plants and say no to computer work. I danced outside, I moved, I sometimes listened to podcasts, I wrote, I played, I painted, but I really got some really incredible, beautiful solo time. I even thought about like wanting to like write, but I was like, no, because that's like with the computer, and I would just do these little notes on this Google Docs from my phone, but I didn't want to like sit down. I know that there's blogs in me and there's books in me, but it wasn't the time. And I'm really glad that I took the time to savor that space, to just lay upon the earth or have my feet upon the earth and just feel her. And there are these incredible sunsets at their place. Almost every night I made it a priority to watch the sunset. And also then in the night to connect with the moon as it traveled across the sky. There's also vultures around there. There was these vultures that kept circling, and I took some time to feel into the vulture and what sort of medicine they have. And that was really incredible. Oh, yes. Okay. I want to speak to this one thing. I mean, there were so many beautiful gifts from my friend Jessie. She is so creative. And she also has I'm not on Instagram, but she has an Instagram with her jewelry. So I'm going to try and remember to put a link there. But okay, so she made me this necklace over 10 years ago. She said that she created this necklace. It's with a peach moonstone and a shell that she collected when she was living in Mexico. She held it in her hands and knew that it was for me. Jessie is also one that named me Amana. My birth name was Ashleigh. So she held this necklace, and I'd always known that Ashleigh did not really suit me, but I didn't feel like anyway, I didn't want to name myself. And long story short, but she's the soul sister that gave me this name, Jessie. And sometimes I call her J-Ma. And so anyway, she held this necklace and she knew it was for me. And she put it on this treasured chain from her grandmother, and she gifted it to me. And I have rarely taken it off of my neck since then. It's been my staple necklace. And then just this, it was in June or July, sometimes just a little before our travel up there. So originally, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this part is like braided now, where there's multiple, it's like two twisted of this copper metal. And there had only been one line there. And so eventually the chain wore through that, and it just wore so thin that it opened. I'm so grateful I didn't lose this. I saw it when it happened, and I didn't lose the necklace. I was a little afraid to try to recreate it myself. So I brought it up to her, and she rewire wrapped this necklace for me. And I feel so happy to have it on my neck. And even beyond that, she also created 2 other shell necklaces with moonstones, one for Charlotte and one for me, that were with shells from the beach in the Pacific Northwest, from the beach that we had been playing upon. And she wrapped a wire wrapped a crab claw pendant for Odin. I just feel so blessed and overwhelmed with love and gratitude for this necklace and those necklaces and all the goodness here. So, yes. What else? So I also got to go on a camping trip with my sister-in-law. She was my friend, and I introduced her to my brother, and they hit it off, and then they got married. They have a little one, my niece. So I got to go on a little camping trip with them at a place called Soap Lake. This lake that has all these different like minerals in it. They call it Soap Lake because it has what look like suds from the different minerals in it. So we got to go in those beautiful waters. And my daughter Charlotte, so she's 3, she'll be 4 in March, and she started swimming this summer. And I started swimming at 3, and I don't know, like I kind of thought it would be fun if my kids started swimming that early. Odin started swimming when he was 5 independently, but she started swimming and going underwater. She can't come up in the middle and take a breath, or she hasn't quite figured that out, but she does like intentionally like loves being like a fish going underwater, like a little mermaid down and up, and she wants to go under my legs in the water, and I'm just like, oh, I love it. I love it. My littles are water babies. So that has been really fun this summer, swimming with my kids. And then, okay, so yes, when I was on the Mother Circle Facilitator follow-up call, Kimberly Ann Johnson, she saw me on the screen and she said, are you in Washington? I'm going to be in Washington. I'm going to be in Bellingham on Monday. I think this was like a Friday. And I was like, okay. And she was like, can you come? It's like, I don't know. I reached out to my mom. I made it happen. I drove across the state and was able to leave my kids with my mom, was able to go up and take part in an in-person gathering with her, like a workshop, I guess I would call it, with her. It was a beautiful free workshop in Bellingham, Washington, and one of my beloved crones in my life. I invited her and she was able to come, so I got to see her and be with her and take part in this and see Kimberly, and also go to then Stephen Jenkinson had a Nights of Grief and Mystery performance the following night and got to see that. So I was really delighted that that impromptu trip happened to work. So yes, I got to spend time reading books, writing down ideas. I also got to visit one of my dear friends, Abby. She was my Young Life leader in high school. She's almost exactly 10 years older than me, which has always been sort of fun for us. She's also a November baby, and I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. I know she'd met Odin, but not Charlotte, I think. I don't remember for certain, but we went and spent 2 nights with her, and it was just so lovely to reconnect with her. She's a special ed teacher, and just a beautiful soul. I mean, she taught me so much. She mothered me in many ways, and also, I spent nights with them. I took trips with them, with her and her husband, and she has 3 kids. And so I got to be with her in those early mothering days and wash dishes for her and hang out with the babes sometimes and babysit. And I remember I watched, I think, her youngest one for his first night away from mom. But she's just always just been a beautiful, loving force in my life. And we had some really, really beautiful conversations. I would love to have her on the podcast, but that's not really, I don't know. I think I asked her before and she said no, but I might ask her again. But somehow we were getting into this dialogue, and I can't remember exactly the language that we were using. And I was trying to figure it out before I record, and I can't remember exactly the word that we used, but she was asking about, I don't think it was indigenous was the word, but I think indigenous is a similar word to like, did I have that in my ancestry? What do I have indigenous roots like in my ancestry? Or like, do I have Native American? Like my if that makes sense. It was questions so somewhat along that line of questioning. And I said, well, not that I know of in the way I feel like she was asking, but that all of us as human beings, like we are here because our ancestors knew how to live and survive in community, in harmony with Mother Earth. And it just means like if we don't have Native American blood, I'm saying, I don't know if I know this might not be PC, but if we don't have that particular Native ancestry, it doesn't mean that our ancestors weren't Native or indigenous to the land, because they were, and that's how they survived. Like our ancestors knew plants. They knew what they could eat from the world around them. They knew how to hunt. They knew how to grow food. They knew what plants were medicine and what plants were poisonous. And that's how they survived. And yes, mine might be further back than modern day, what we would call Native Americans. My ancestors that can do that might be further back in my line, but they did exist. And so in some ways, we are all that. We all are human animals that came from this earth, that have ancestors that knew how to live from the earth in harmony with the earth. All of us. I do, you do. Okay? I don't know why that felt important to say, but it did. I would love to hear your response to that, or what that might bring up in you, or what your opinions are, what your perspective is on that. If it's different or if it's the same, I would love to hear from you. Okay, so I have this other note, and this makes me, think of this too. So one of the days we were pulling up in this like long, dirt road driveway to my in-laws. And a deer walked in front of our path, which isn't like unusual. We see deer there often. And he made a comment about how wonderful it is that deer live in such a way that they don't have to carry anything with them. And although I've thought similar thoughts before, there was something about the way that he said it. I wish I could remember the exact words, but the way that he said it and how he was just kind of like matter of fact. But it led to this like dialogue of, like how true that is. Like, and that they don't need a jacket when it snows. They don't use a toothbrush. They don't use artificial light. They don't have a bank account or insurance or created currency like money. They don't have social media. They don't have any clothing ever. There's no shoes. There's no buying the next size up. There's nothing. No mattress at night. No pillow. Like what a free life. And why have we as humans like built ourselves into this life where it's required or expected of us to have all these things, to wear clothing? Like it's still illegal most places for women to show their nipples, but men can. it's just, yeah, such an interesting, weird, bizarre world that we live in. And like, how free would that be? How free would that feel to not need all those things? And do we really need all those things? I don't know. These are my questions to you. Um, and and noticing what ways that I here, okay, I'll change it to an I statement. Like these are more, yeah, I'd rather say it from my own lens. It had me reflecting on like, oh, okay, and like in what ways am I engaging in that? In what ways am I choosing the stuff, the toys, the um the clothing that I might not need, the item, whatever that may be. And how can I, and noticing that I have that choice and I can make some different choices. I mean, yes, I'm gonna have clothes on. I don't have fur. I don't have a way to keep myself warm without them. And yeah, in society, I can't just be naked all the time. And I'm not sure that I would want to be, but it's just an interesting thought of like, what this is the life of the wild animals and how good it can feel for me. Like it was nice to swim. I do enjoy swimming naked when I can, when that's available to me. I do love finding herbs, lavender, yarrow, um, and selecting them, picking them from the earth and consuming them. And so just inviting like what are the micro or macro shifts that I can make to assert or embody in my own life more freedom and more pleasure. Pleasure is another one of these for me. Yes. And also, yeah, so I took time to dance, to sing. Singing's another thing that has been like, okay, so before I started this podcast, a few years before that, like, so when I was working as a registered nurse in the industrial medical system, the comment that I got from my manager almost every time, I think maybe even every time, was that I didn't speak enough. I wasn't talkative enough during the meetings, during the things, that I didn't talk enough. And it's been a big journey for me to open up my throat chakra, to talk even when I'm scared, to speak and to be heard, and to know that I'm not going to say the right thing all the time, that I'm going to say different things. And then also like what I say or my opinion is going to change across time. So someone might listen to something I published a few years ago and be like, and I might not even agree with my former self, but just putting it out there anyway and practicing using my voice and practicing taking up space in conversation. And then over my birthday last year, when I had that incredible birthday celebration with 13 other women, 13 other women. I don't remember exactly. I think there were 14 of us. So 13 other women had this incredible birthday celebration. And song was a big part of this. And it just activated my singing in another way. And so this year and this summer especially has been an expansion of that, of singing. And I've been singing to people in voice messages and creating songs myself and just singing more and being more fearless, or walking through the fear and singing. So know that if you are one of those people who barely speaks in a conversation or who has a really hard time getting words out, it's possible for you to build up the practice of speaking and talking and singing out loud. So yeah, just wanted to say that here. I also just took time to just be silent, which feels to me like you could leave me for weeks without another soul. I don't need other people. I could be happy. Yes, I love community and being with other people. And yes, that's necessary, but I could also go for weeks by myself in silence, and I would just love it. But that's not really where my life is right now. I don't want weeks away from my kids right now, but just saying. All right, so then we started our journey in October, and it took a little bit longer getting all the way back to Mississippi. We arrived on the 29th of Mississippi, and I think we left on like the 11th or 12th or something like that is when we started our journey, but stayed a few more days with my mom, stayed a few days with my brother, got to see my sister in California and her kids for a few nights, my uncle in Las Vegas, another friend in Arizona. But oh my gosh, the car ride back felt so much more daunting. As much as I like wanted to get here, it just felt like so hard. But I pushed on. We made it. I never got pulled over. So much driving. I thought for sure at some point I would get pulled over for something. Never got pulled over. Got to have some more beautiful time with family. And these last weeks before being back together with Owen definitely they felt so hard. Those last few weeks felt so hard. I just wanted schlepping the stuff and the kids and doing every single bedtime and meal. And I just was like, could not wait for his support and for him to be part of this, to not be solo parenting anymore. So I'm so happy to be back here with him. I'm happy to be back in our little tiny home with more of my books. Like, of course, I took some books with me, but like some I left here, and I'm so happy to be reunited with some of those books and to just have this space and to be able to, staying in other people's homes. If I wanted to take a shower, it always felt a little bit hard or daunting, like not knowing what my kids might sort of get into, or even if they were playing, if they would have a conflict, that then I would be like, have to get out of the shower earlier, not really enjoy it. I was always taking fast showers, but I got to, so like, whereas being here, we're in our own space, they have their room, their stuff. I'm not, like, they know what they can do and not do in this space. And so it feels really, as much as being in a tiny movable home is challenging, I have a newfound love for our little home right now at this point in time. And it has been a really beautiful reintegration as a family of four. Our kids just loving on Owen and giving him so many hugs, and like, if he's going somewhere, them wanting to go with him and not stay with me at home, and how beautiful that is. And I have not fully unpacked the van. I've been doing more rest, and Owen has done every single bedtime since we've been back. And we're sharing the burden of cooking and cleaning, and it just feels really joyful right now. So I'm grateful, so grateful. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say today. So thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm excited to share more interview podcasts with you. And also, Owen and I recorded an episode together yesterday, the day before. So that will also be coming out. I'm thinking about maybe releasing 4 episodes a month, with the new moon, the full moon, and then the like quarter moons. So we'll see. I thought about doing it before and then sort of didn't feel like I had the capacity for it, but I'm feeling like that might be possible come this month. So we'll see. If you would like to work with me, I have my calendar open now. If you want to book a clarity call or a sistership session or a group of sessions or a mediumship reading, go to birthingnova.love. You're also welcome to send me an email if you have questions. I would love to work with you if you feel so called to work with me. And look for Mother Circle coming in January. I am really excited to be facilitating Mother Circle and offering that to you listeners. And I hope that you join me, because Mother Circle has just been a beautiful experience for me. And I'm excited to get to share it all with you through Kimberly Ann Johnson and Jessica Connolly. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Mwah! Until we meet again, be brave, be bold, be love, and be the change that you seek for this world. Mwah.